All right, it's the Two and Under podcast. We are here to preview the Wolves game at St James's Park coming up this weekend. We're not going to talk about the last Newcastle results because it was absolutely horrible. And Mark, you were on the pod the other day talking about that. So
yeah, that was a tough one.
Let's push that into the carpet, shall we, Mark?
Yeah. Onwards and upwards.
How are you doing, Mark? All right.
I'm doing good, thank you. Yeah, how's everything with you?
Yeah, good. Twice, 2 pods in a week in the space of a few days for you. You're getting back
making up for lost time. It's been a while since I've been on them, so.
And we've also got a guest from the Wolves Fancast today, Stu. I'm assuming you are living in Wolverhampton, Stu?
Yes, I've never ventured further than 5 miles from Wolverhampton Centre. So yeah, hello everyone.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Stu. So you have contributed to the Wolves Fancast for quite a while. What's your kind of background of that pod, and what's the story there?
I usually don't want to talk about Sunday because it was a nice. Well, I was sitting there Sunday afternoon with my a couple of beers. It was 4:30 kickoff, Super Sunday. It was nice bit of entertainment on the back of the Villa game that we had the day before. So, fancast wise, yeah, it started by a guy called David. Is still David Evans Pod on Twitter if you want to follow him. The Podfather, as he was known, back in 2007. So at the very, very start of podcasts being an actual thing. He started it as a uni project, and then he kind of kept it on going. And because there was no one else doing anything like this apart from local radio and stuff like that, we had a website, and we still have a website as well. So it was a lot of match blogs and reports, and because I was going to away games every week, they put a thing out on Twitter again, and because I'd followed the show for years, just they wanted someone to do not like a match report, just an away fan experience kind of thing. So I applied for that and wrote for that for a few years, and then he just asked me out of the blue, said, "Do you want to come on the podcast?" And it's like, dream come true kind of thing. And that was in our doldrum years when we got back promoted from League One. And then it was a bit boring before the Fosun takeover and whatever. But yeah, so I kind of stuck around since then. So it's probably been going on 8 years now that I've been on there. Other people have been on for a lot longer, some a lot shorter. But there's 10, 11 of us now who contribute, and we've had a kind of refresh down the years of certain people leaving because of life and whatever, and new people coming on. And so yeah, it's been good, and obviously it's a lot better now than it used to be.
Yeah, you've nobody can accuse you of being glory supporters. It's not like us who've kind of we've all been Newcastle fans for a long time, but we've jumped on the bandwagon since the takeover happened, because probably, quite frankly, it was a little bit too depressing to talk much about Newcastle before that time. But yeah, that's proper credibility there for you. So you go to away games as well, do you? All the away games pretty much.
Yeah, I think when I worked it out, pre-COVID nonsense, I think I'd missed 10 away games in best part of 10 years.
Wow.
So, and about 5 homes in that time. So yeah, I mean, it's how I get away with having all this stuff in my house, being married with 2 kids and stuff. It's a minor miracle in itself. But yeah, Wolves it's a thing. It's only, like I said, it's 4 miles down the road. We're in a great location in the country. Friday night's the furthest that we have to travel all season long, and that's still 3.5 hours on the road. So yeah, I'm quite lucky that I've in the situation that I am, that I get to do these things. But yeah, it's been almost justified from all the barren years of nonsense and nothingness. So yeah, if I can be there, I will be there.
So you've got 3.5 hours on the road, and then you've got another 3.5 hours to climb to level 7 in St James's Park, so you can see the pitch.
When we got promoted in the first time in 2003, we that was our last away game of the season, so we were all looking forward to it. We were already relegated by then, so 2003-04, it was the first time we'd gone there. So obviously, it was more of a thing back then, where the last away game of the season's always fancy dress. So we went. I mean, there was a local, the English advert, these 2 118 men. It was like old 80s runners. I don't know if that.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And me and my mate dressed as 118, 2 of us, and we ran to the top. But bearing in mind I was only 21 then, doing that 5-6 years later, was not possible. So it'll be a nice little stroll this time. We might even try and blag our way into the lift. But yeah, it's a view. I'll say that for you.
Take your binoculars.
Yeah, you can almost see Holland, I think, can't you, over the stand? All right, brilliant, Stu. Well, thanks very much for coming on. We will have a little, very quick break, and then we'll get back in and we'll start talking a little bit about Wolves. All right, Stu. So what we like to do really when we have fans on for a preview is to get a little bit of an insight into their club. And we know that, fans of clubs can have skewed opinions about other clubs sometimes because of the way things are presented in the media. So what's your thoughts and opinions about Wolves this season so far? Because it looks like you've done pretty well from the outside.
Oh, it's beyond my wildest expectations, massively. I mean, I said on the Fancast at the start of the season that if we played entertaining football, I'd take 16th and be perfectly happy with that. If there was a sign of transition, because for everything, I mean, it might seem like we were being spoilt brats and everything, wanting Nuno out after what he'd done for us and whatever, but it got to the stage where it had just gone stale. And you could see, I mean, obviously playing behind closed doors didn't help. But everyone was in the same boat, so they couldn't use that as an excuse. And I know that Wolves fans have been quite loud, and as we are back in the team, whatever. But after a couple of months, no, it wasn't an excuse anymore. Things had just run their course, their natural course, and he probably stayed a little bit too long. I think if fans had been there, he would have been gone by Christmas. It was just something wasn't right, and I don't think something was right with him personally. And then what happened at Spurs with him wasn't he wasn't the man that he was pre-COVID. If COVID got him, if it changed him, I don't know. But he donated 250 grand to the City of Wolverhampton food bank out of his own pocket. So, I mean, the guy's going to be worshipped here forever for what he did for us. So it was just a case of no hard feelings. But with having Nuno for 4 years, we had a certain way of playing, which is 3-4-3 or 3-5-2. And it was very defensive. It was very counter-attacking. And it got to the stage where nothing was happening at all. There was no goals. There was no hope. It's kind of like probably the Steve Bruce years with you lot.
I was going to say, that sounds familiar, yeah.
Yeah, which thank you for sacking him, because he's now doing a brilliant job anyway. But yeah, so we all, I've seen a bit of Benfica and Bruno Lage in the Champions League, but not much, obviously, because Portuguese football, it's kind of hard to get unless you go through certain ways and means of getting hold of it. But they played attractive football, and we all thought, okay, this guy's going to come in. He's played 4-4-2 for the majority of his games with kind of overlapping fullbacks. Oh, this is all exciting. And then he came in and we realised that we didn't have them players, and these players had been drilled in for a certain way of playing. And he asked for players at the start of the season. They didn't give them to him. So he was going with Nuno's team. So we all said, okay, well, if you can get anything out of them, we'll accept safety as long as there's progress. And it's took a while. I mean, the first 3 games we absolutely battered them. We had Leicester, Spurs, and Man United, and we absolutely destroyed them, and we had no points.
Yeah,
no points, no goals.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, well, this is the best football we've played for probably in my lifetime, and we've got nothing from it. So after that, it kind of reassessed things, and it tightened it up at the back a bit and went back to what we knew. And it was kind of like a process of kind of pushing on from there. So we kind of all accepted, because we knew it was a long-term thing and it was never going to change overnight. But when there was a mental stat came up on Saturday night, I think this was before your game on Sunday, about top scoring teams in the Premier League, and we were 3rd with 20 goals in 2022. And you think, well, Wolves don't score ever, but and we've been getting 2s, and obviously the 4 against Watford helped. But we've slowly but surely kind of evolved into this team where we now press high up the pitch, but not all the time. They kind of press with intelligence and kind of go when they can go, which rewind 8 months. You ain't going to get these players doing that, because you ain't going to, 35-year-old João Moutinho running around the pitch all day long, but he is, and he's fitter than everyone, and it's exceeded our wildest expectations. And I think even if we finish, well, we're not going to finish lower than 8. Even if we finish top half, it'd be an incredible season. But that carrot's there now, and it's gonna, like, don't get your hopes up. But then you look at it, and if we win on Friday, we're 6th for a while. No, calm down, because especially with the teams that we've got to play yet. But yeah, it's been superb.
Expectations change, don't they? So even if the fans don't want that to happen, and it happened at Newcastle recently, where we didn't win a single game until game 15 of the season, and then we went on that run of 9 games unbeaten, and then we lost a few games, and people are getting upset and kind of angry, So it just shows you how quickly expectations can change. And yeah, Wolves, you've got that carrot, like you said, so you're only a couple of points off 6th. That could be another European season potentially. And there was a period of time a few months ago where you were pretty close to 4th, weren't you? I think you were just behind West Ham in 4th at that point.
Yeah, and then we kind of masters of our own downfall with that. I mean, I don't think it was ever going to happen. It was not. I've said this on the Fancast as well, that people get carried away. I said, just enjoy this season. Let's just enjoy the journey, because we never expected this to happen anyway. And I mean, me personally, I never got to go to an away game in Europe because I'd saved it up, and it was going to be Olympiacos in Greece, and then that was literally the week. The week everything got shut down. I thought, oh well, brilliant. So for me, I missed out on the away times. I was there for all the home ones, going from seeing, well, literally years earlier, and we fought 4 years earlier, before Faustin took over, and we're playing Stevenage and Crawley Town away, to then you're sitting at home and you got Torino at home, Espanyol at home, and you're beating them 4-0. You want that back. Obviously, naturally, you want that back. So when we were challenging for 4th, you think, we could get Barcelona at home, and just calm down. Just calm down a bit. It's not there yet. But then we lost to Arsenal twice in a month. We lost to West Ham, and then with how we collapsed against Leeds, and that kind of destroyed 4th altogether. And refereeing decisions, we can all moan at that. But our own naivety at times has got the better of us, which is understandable. I mean, we have got a manager who, despite his age, has only got 18 months worth of first team managerial experience before he came to us. So he's learning on the job as well. So it's one of them things. I think we've overachieved massively at times in the season, but 8th is kind of our natural position, I think, as we are now.
Yeah.
A lot of it will come down to squad depth as well, and just sort of getting the most out of those fringe players when, legs get tired. And as you were saying, it's like if you're playing a more pressing style of football, it's going to take its toll. It's going to need a bigger squad. And if you don't have that backup player to come in and be able to keep that momentum and keep that same performance up, then, I think you expect a little bit of sort of like up and down with your performances and your results. But yeah, I think you've had an absolutely fantastic season.
Yeah, I mean, well, on that, about what you said about the style of football as well, the pressing, he said after how well Fabio Silva played against Villa, he said that he wished he'd had more chances, but he hasn't been able to use him as a sub because we've changed our fullbacks 18 times over the season during games through fatigue. And you think, how is this possible? But because we have got a tiny squad anyway, and we have done for a long time, we've got 18 first team players, and then the rest are like academy kids. It's the way they want to operate, but playing like that, when you do get done for injuries, I mean, that's why we were kind of worried against Villa, because obviously our best player, Ruben Neves, has been out for probably 4 games. He's 1/3 of our senior midfielders because we only have 3. So when we play 3 in midfield, that's all we have. So we've got lucky in a way with having quite a small squad and playing that the way that we do. But it has kind of caught up with us a little bit now.
And talking about the squad, so probably one of Wolves' most high-profile players was Adama Traore. So, how come he's been allowed to go out on loan? Is there I know he's from Barcelona originally, and he was a sub a lot of the time as well. But is there a story there, or is it just that he doesn't start games well? He doesn't have much end product because there's been a lot of noise around him.
I think that sums him up. I lost patience with him a long time ago, and we signed him for 18 million quid from Middlesbrough, and he's not improved in 4 years. He's exactly the same. You'd think, well, he's been coached now under Nuno, who was meticulous in his planning and doing things like this, and yeah, it's all well and good. Oh, you've probably had the same thing with St. Maximum as well. And that's why I couldn't believe that link yesterday. He said Wolves are interested. I went, no, we're not, because we just got rid of one of them. We're not going to have another pace merchant. We're after Dan James from Leeds next. They're exactly the same. He looks impressive because he's fast and he's strong and he beats about 5 blokes.
And built like a brick shit house.
Yeah.
And he Vaselines his arms or something as well, doesn't he?
Yeah. That was because he had his shoulder kept falling out of its socket like Riggs in Lethal Weapon. Like he was popping it back in all the time. So he did that so that defenders couldn't pull on his arms. That's what the reason for that was. And then obviously just because it looks good. And he is a ridiculous specimen of a man. But his end product was not there. And he had 1 goal, 1 assist, I think, all season. And to have, I mean, his stats are awful. If you go, I know the game's not on stats, of course, but he'd beat 5 blokes, but then he'd mess it up, his final ball, or he'd go so far up the pitch that when he got into a position to cross or do something, he was so fast that no one else was there. So it was kind of defeating the object. And come January, he had 18 months left on his contract. He made it clear that they offered him an improved deal, which seemed to have been around about the same as Neves on 80 grand a week, which again, not to be sniffed at. But he wouldn't sign it. So if you got someone who doesn't want to who's not kicking up a fuss, to be fair to him, he wasn't throwing his dummies out the pram and he wasn't doing anything like that. He was completely committed, and I think how everyone he scored a goal at Brentford that was ruled offside with VAR later on, but the whole team were there celebrating with him. And he was there celebrating with the manager. And it was obviously nothing personal. It was just for him. He had his vision of what he thought he was worth. That was different to the club. There was no meeting in the middle. And with 18 months left, it was either sell him to Spurs for 15 million, which was a possibility, or take the risk and send him to Barcelona on loan for 6 months and hope that they'd see something in him to make it permanent. And he's played 6 times. He's got 2 assists, which was in the first couple of games. And he doesn't seem to have moved on there like I think they would have thought. So with him, I think it's just a case of his race with us has run a bit like Nuno as well, where it was good to start with. It hasn't evolved like we all thought it would. And now it's just time to part ways because he'll come back with 12 months left on his contract. We'll probably get 15 million from 10-15 million from anyway from someone. And then that'll be it.
And signing for Barcelona isn't maybe hasn't got the prestige it used to have. You just have to ask Martin Braithwaite or Luke de Jong. It's not quite the same as it used to be. But Mark, does some of the stuff that Stu's saying there, does some of that sound a little bit familiar at the moment?
Yeah, it's something
that mercurial French winger.
I think with a few of our players, to be honest, I think we've got too many players like that are kind of all fart and no shit, so to speak. They kind of look great when they're in full flow. They work hard. So Maximin's like running all day. Miggy's the same. Loads and loads of energy on the pitch, but there's just very, very little end product. And it seems that ASM's kind of going that way, where he seems to have been stagnating a little bit. And we've been on social media today, and people are having like conversations and arguments and bitch fests all over the shop with, you can't criticize him, he's our best player. It's like, yeah, he's our best player, and we need to kind of accommodate that right now. But moving forward with the club, you've kind of got to think, well, is that one player who's going to kind of demand the ball, want to sort of pace themselves out of being anywhere near their teammates. You know, is that going to be sort of sustainable for the bigger team sort of project? And I guess it's the same with Traore, where you've got that player who just seems like they should be this perfect player for you. They've got pace, they've got sort of skills, but very, very rarely end up with that end product from it. And it gets frustrating to a point. I think teammates get frustrated as well. And it gets to the point where, yeah, maybe it does become time to look at other options, because they're not going to sit on the bench. They're not going to be happy with that bit part role. So yeah, big summer for us, I think, with Alan St-Maximin. I think he's fantastic. He's being double teamed all the time, if not triple teamed by defenders. So that's obviously not helping him, because he is our only outlet at the moment. So potentially, you know, maybe we get some extra quality in the summer and it alleviates some of that pressure on him, so he is freer to do something. But it's that ability to bring other players into the game. And if you're dragging two defenders, there's somebody free, so you should be able to find that open player, and he doesn't seem to be doing that. So yeah, it's frustrating.
In fairness, St-Maximin does have decent end product. Occasionally, he'll score important goals and he'll get assists, and he does get kicked all game, every game, pretty much. And there's not that much protection for him sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think if he leaves Newcastle, it probably will be to another Premier League club, but not a current Champions League club. You know, Villa maybe, or I don't know. Stu's just dismissed the idea of Wolves signing him because they don't need that kind of player. But I can see it being another Premier League club rather than a Champions League level club.
I think so. Villa, Leicester, that kind of mid bracket, kind of challenging for the top half. That seems to be his level. And obviously you got these. I mean, he is quite. I mean, even I following him on Twitter, he's quite funny on social media. Yeah. So he's got the personality about him as well, and he's social media dream. But yeah, I mean, everything you just said about him is exactly the same as us. I mean, that's why I don't think there's anything in it other than a bit of lazy journalism there. That there'll be interest from Premier League clubs. It doesn't necessarily mean us, because we function much better as a team without Traore, than with him in the team. So I can't. And they've bought another guy who's very fast, in Chiquinho, who's Portuguese, obviously, so he fits better with the rest of them, the squad. So I can't see it happening, really, personally.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Wolves ownership situation. This is something that can be potentially quite confusing from the outside as well. Wolves are owned by a company owned by Fosun, is that right? Or that's the company, and they've got links to George Mendes. So he's not actually involved with that company, is he? Or like in an official capacity? But he's got those links, so that's how Wolves have ended up with all the Portuguese side of things. Yeah,
so how it works, Fosun International bought out Steve Morgan in 2016. Fosun are a massive Chinese conglomerate. They own loads of different things. Part of the thing that they own a percentage of Gestifute, which is George Mendes' company. So while he's not on the payroll at Wolves, he's an unofficial advisor in the fact that we own part of the talent agency that a lot of these players are represented by, which sounded the most dodgy thing in the entire world when it first came out. But it was cleared by the Premier League. It was cleared by the EFL when we were in the Championship. They both said it's absolutely fine. There's no conflict of interest because, well, why would there be? We were getting. I mean, we got João Moutinho for £5 million from Monaco, and that was mental. And we got Neves for, I think it was about 15 million in the end.
But yeah, that was when you were in the Championship as well, wasn't it? Neves signed,
When we got Bolly on loan, and again was upgraded to 11. Jota on loan, but again, they were kids then. They weren't really household names that they are now. So it was kind of, apart from Moutinho and having Rui Patricio when we got promoted, it was kind of warped a bit, in a way, because it had never been done before. So you never had a club the club being owned by someone who also owned an agency, because it was rare, rare
just
at best. And it never happened in this country anyway. And a lot of people kind of went to the Tevez and Mascherano thing at West Ham and how third-party ownership was banned, but it's only banned in England. It's not banned in South America, where it still happens. So it was one of them things. It was controversial because it was unknown at the time, but we have had some proper shit as well through this deal. It's not all been brilliant. I mean, as well as like Helder Costa and Alvin Cavallero, who then we sold on as for profit to Fulham and Leeds. A lot of the Mendes carousel, there's certain clubs where you work with, and obviously Benfica, and that's how Bruno Lage is here. Nuno was Mendes' first ever client and his best friend, so that's how he ended up here. But what wasn't kind of never talked about now, because it didn't happen before. I mean, Nuno was backup. Nuno was second choice. First choice was Julian Lopetegui from Sevilla. Right. And he turned us down for the Spanish national team job, which
fair enough.
You kind of think fair enough at the time. Coming to live in Wolverhampton or manage your country, half and half there. Yeah, so it's not as complicated as people make it out to be. We're owned by a Chinese company who have made us self-sufficient now. They wrote off 126 million quid's worth of debt into equity. So if they wanted to sell us now, they'd probably get about what did you go with? 300 million in the end?
340, I think it was, yeah.
But, yeah, so I think 300, around about a similar kind of figure for the assets that we have and the squad that we have. So they bought us for 40. They're selling us on for 10 times that if they wanted to do that. But they've said that we're a legacy. We're a forever brand now. In terms of them. And there was an interview with Jeff Shee, who's the chairman and CEO, said that we were bought because of that more than anything else, the logo for audio listeners, because of how iconic it is, the name Wolves just being, one of the things that, I mean, not many teams are actually listed in official things as their nickname. And we just are loads of things. You look on the Premier League website, it says Wolves, not Wolverhampton Wanderers, which hardly anyone, apart from in the classification on a Saturday night on 5 Live, no one ever says Wolverhampton Wanderers because it's a mouthful. But then they've bought these esports people they've bought esports companies brought in China and America and branded it as Wolves Esports, but using the ES and in Wolves, and it's all very clever. And they've got a record company now, and it's all kind of linked to back to the same thing under Fowson Sports, which is now owners of us under a different thing. But it all comes back to making money for us, because we can't compete with. Well, we could compete, but they don't want us to compete with people like Man City and like you now. And they want it to be we spend what we have. And we don't go over that, so which is fair enough. But it's kind of the fans have had to readjust their expectations a bit, because they came in saying that they wanted us bigger than Man City, and as everyone does when they come in, and now they've pivoted to this self-sufficient model, which was always kind of there, but now they're saying, well, we have a certain amount of money that we make from TV deals and sponsorships and all these esports stuff. That is what we'll spend. We're not going to bankrupt the club.
I'm shuddering. I don't know about you, Mark, but that talking about being self-sufficient and sustainable is all great. But this is what Mike Ashley said for Newcastle as well. I think a big difference there, though, is that the commercial side of it just went absolutely to shit, because he was plugging his Tatty Sports brand everywhere, and he got to a point where he was deliberately and seemed like he was deliberately antagonizing fans over the years, and there was no ambition there. But with Wolves, that sounds a bit different. So it just sounds like a realistic and kind of sensible model, which is going to be sustainable, but where there's still going to be a bit of kind of sort of ambition to push on and try and get good players.
I think that's the difference, isn't it? It sounds like they want to expand the revenue streams that they can to make sure they've got a better foundation for being that self-sufficient model while still being able to be competitive. I think it's actually really nice that they're saying that they've got this long-term, like we're here for the long haul, and we're not going to sort of like try and flog you off for a quick profit. Because obviously when new owners come in, we've seen it a few times now where they come in, they flash the cash, doesn't quite go. They kind of spend 100, 200 million, whatever. Doesn't quite go the way they think it should, because they think like, oh well, I'm going to drop that money and suddenly we're going to be in the Champions League, and then it doesn't happen. They buy stuff too quickly, and it happened with Sunderland when they got taken over. That was the big thing that went wrong with them. They spent too much money too quickly. It didn't work out. The owner then threw the toys out the pram, stopped investing anything, and they've just tumbled down the leagues. And the scary thing is you can actually see Everton doing the same thing because of how much money they've spent and how little has gone right for them. And
I was just going to mention Everton,
yeah. And that's the thing. It's important to have that long-term strategy, that growth model, and the whole sustainable model that Ashley had was sustainable in terms of not being able to put a penny into the club unless he absolutely had to sort of stave off relegation or something like that. But there was no building of brands. There was no building of external revenue streams. In fact, he was taking money out of the club because he was advertising his own brand without the club getting anything for it. And so you're basically losing this whole revenue stream. And then obviously because of the way we were being run, no major sponsors wanted to touch us anyway for shirt sponsorship deals. So we ended up with much reduced revenue from that. So to me, it sounds like your owners are actually on the right track. So yeah, good luck to you.
Yeah, they changed their thing as well, because they came in and said that they had a 10-year vision. And then start of last year, they just said, well, no, that vision's 20 years. We're not going anywhere. I mean, even I just looked it up then, and their brand identity was blue and white, which is obviously not ideal for us, but it is what it is. They changed their own brand identity to be white and gold. So this is a multi-billion-dollar company that changed their identity to match us, and in there, and put the Wolves brand front and center in every kind of shareholder meeting, everything like that. The Wolves badge is the first thing that comes up on the screens behind everyone. It's having a shop in Shanghai is just insane. But yeah, I mean, like what you said about Ashley, the difference, it seemed like it was self-sufficient in order to stay up. And I mean, the last time we went to St. James's, the place looked terrible. It was like there'd been no maintenance done to it. It looked like it needed a good wash. And that's not just the roof where the old branding was. It just looked unkept. So
the dead pigeon in the...
I was going to say, there was a dead pigeon. The Gallagher pigeon was on the roof, dead, on the glass roof for like years. You know? So yeah, you're absolutely right. That is exactly what happened. So I'm really interested in that stuff. I think it's good that they didn't come in and do what Vincent Tan did when he changed Cardiff's colours, didn't he? But yeah, so if you can get overseas owners that seem to understand and they don't just pay lip service to the traditions of the club, and they actually seem to take it into account, and then their actions, speak for that. I think that's really a really good thing. So, fair play to them for doing that, and good luck to Wolves. Stu, what do you think is the kind of ceiling then for the non-Super League clubs, the non-elite clubs, who don't get taken over by a nation state like we just have been? What do you think the ceiling is for clubs who are run in that way that Wolves are run? And how do you keep the kind of excitement going if you think you're going to get a certain high and then there's just going to be a glass ceiling that you're not going to be able to get any higher then?
I think for us, the way that we're doing things, I think regular Europa League is kind of where we kind of fit in. And historically, apart from 3 years in the 50s, that's kind of where we are. That's what we, as a club, that's where we kind of live. We know what we are. We're massive. It's going to take an awful lot of money or a lot of luck and talent to kind of break that ceiling, and they've kind of used that as well, like the Leicester thing. They said we could throw money at it, no problem. We've got all the money in the world, but what's the point if you do it once, then that's it? We want to be up there challenging consistently. So that was kind of the reasoning behind going the way that they're going now. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, they've never said, if they've like a few times where they said if we find someone, we'll pay for them. Like Raul Jimenez, 30 million quid, and the Fabio Silva thing, which is. There's nothing dodgy about signing a teenager for 35 million quid at all, was there? But then
who barely played before,
yeah. I mean, to be honest, he was superb. Like I mentioned earlier, he was superb against Villa, and he's still only 19. He was obviously bought for a long time in the future, but through Brexit, it wouldn't have been possible other than to get him then. So, yeah, they will put the money in when they need to. But I think other than doing it the way you're doing it, and I mean, Villa have got money now. If you want to spunk money at the wall, then go ahead. But it's not just about that. Like we've talked about, you got to be sensible. And I mean, Everton spending £500 million in 5 years, and going into as time recording, going into a relegation game tonight, which is, I mean, I was going to go and watch Sonic 2 tonight, but I can't. I mean, this game is so much of a car crash. I have to stay in and watch it. So. You have to be sensible with it, and you have. I mean, I've come on to. I don't know if you've mentioned Kevin Thelwell yet in your talks, but he did wonders for us, and we were gutted when he left for Red Bulls, because he's got a football brain and he knows what he's doing. So you're in good hands with him.
Kevin Thelwell, is he joined us in some kind of position? I don't know.
Oh, he went to Everton as their sporting director. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So from an Everton point of view, so he's now there to try and fix all the nonsense that's gone on.
If it's not too late.
But him being here through the bad years as well, his development and the people he was bringing through, he knew what he was doing, and that's why it worked for us. And you've got teams in the Championship, Derby being the prime example of this, who spent ridiculous money, didn't work. They gambled again it didn't work, and now they're being took over by God knows who.
Mike Ashley, apparently.
Probably Mike Ashley.
It was Mike Ashley or some American who was making questionable comments about women on Twitter 7 years ago, as the sleuths found out yesterday. So you have to have someone in the background, and for us it worked because we had him and we had sensible people in charge. You seem to have built a structure there as well, having football people behind the scenes first, rather than just spending nonsense. I mean,
so I think that's kind of what has been refreshing about the new owners coming in, and Staveley has said in her press conferences and her interviews and stuff that they're not after just sort of like throwing money at the wall like Man City did or like Chelsea did. They want to build a sustainable model. They want to build the academy up. They want to have that sort of conveyor belt of young talent coming through sort of to the first team. And then they can top up because they have the money to go out and buy that one or two players that they need just to kind of slot into those positions that they maybe can't develop their own players, or they buy like the Red Bull model that they use in Germany, where they buy younger players, they develop them up, and then they can sell them on at a profit. But obviously the idea is that, you know, they've got the money, they don't need to sell, but they're developing their own in-house talent so that they buy someone who's really good, but then they come to this like world-class level. So it looks to me like they're trying to do that sort of the right thing, and it is important. And as we've all said, you know, the way Everton have done it and just sort of thrown money at it, and it just hasn't worked because they've bought the wrong players or they've overpaid for players. I mean, I think Newcastle had a lucky escape that Donny van der Beek turned us down. Dele Alli turned us down because they didn't want to be in a relegation fight, of all things. And then now they're just, I mean, Dele Alli can't get a game because he's just shot. I mean, he's everyone's saying last chance saloon for him already, and he just can't get a game at the moment for Everton. So it makes you question a lot of things behind the scenes with some of those players that they've been buying.
Yeah, I couldn't believe Well, I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw Dele Alli the other week when we played them. He's just considering he's he's not ancient. He's not like in his late 30s or anything. He's just
26, isn't he? I think.
Yeah.
he's completely gone. I mean, it's all obviously it's in his head, and the whole too much too soon thing might apply to him. I don't know, but he's just not the player. I mean, they've signed. I think the problem with Everton, they've just signed names over and over and over again, and it doesn't work like that. I mean, we've got, like you said about the Red Bull model, when Ferguson have quoted Red Bull as well as the way to do things, and that was the case with Jota when we bought him for 13, 14, whatever it was, sold him for 45. Neves will probably, I mean, the fact that Ruben Neves is still here after 5 years, and he's got Wolves tattoos all over himself, and his kids have got Wolverhampton accents now, and which is a good or bad thing, whichever way you see that. But if he wants to go, then he gets everyone's blessing, and we'll get 50, 60 million for him, and that's our 15 million quid investment. So, and showing that kind of that we have got a pathway, and we won't stand in anyone's way if they want to go and they want to move on, then I think that kind of helps as well. So it's the right way. It's the right way to do things, and it is sustainable doing it that way.
Yeah, it's the key word, isn't it? Sustainable, but there's no reason why you can't do that married up with ambition as well. And especially when you do have resources like Newcastle, where we're very fortunate now that we've got these resources. But we still, like Mark said, we still want it to be sustainable. We still want it to be, to last a long time. We don't just want to be relying on handouts from nation states, That's not, because that has got the potential to go very badly wrong very quickly if something happens. So that's been really interesting, that background on Wolves there, Stu. What we'll do is we'll have a little break, and we will get into talking about the actual football match, which is coming up. See you in a minute. All right, so Newcastle are playing Wolves at St James's Park. It's a Friday night game, so that's going to be good fun in Newcastle. Big market will be jumping after that one. There's a good buzz around about the city at the moment, by all accounts, because of the football takeover, and you've got Sam Fender doing well. Everyone was at the Sam Fender gig last night, so things are looking good in Newcastle. Friday night game just before Easter. I think it's probably going to be a big one. Unfortunately for us, that makes it a Saturday morning. I think it's
6 a.m.
5 a.m.
5 a.m. Yeah.
5 a.m. Yeah. So this is what happens, Stu, when you move to Australia. You have to watch football matches at before the sun's come up in the morning.
I'll be doing the exact reverse on Sunday morning. Good old Lewis. Watching the Grand Prix live at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning here. I don't know what it is. I'll be up for the pre-race anyway. Look, I do most years, apart from last year when it didn't happen. But yeah, I'd feel your pain. Doing that once a year is bad enough, let alone every week.
And are you going to the match then on Friday night?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah,
we're leaving. I'm not staying over this time.
I was about to ask.
the old liver can't handle it again. Because the people a couple of my mates who are going up, they're staying for 2 days. They're staying Saturday night as well, and I've got things to do other than the race. I've got actual kids to take care of on the Sunday. So unfortunately, I can't join them in this adventure. So I said if we were staying on the Friday night and coming back Saturday, then I probably would have done it. But no, it's too much. So it's just a coach job. 3.5 hours there, 3.5 hours back. I'll get back around about 3 in the morning, 3 in the morning.
You get plenty of beers on the coach then.
Oh well, we'll have beers before we get on the couch. Couch drinking is illegal in this country for some ridiculous reason. But yeah, we'll have a few before we leave. I think we're leaving at 1 in the afternoon. So I think then we'll go to either Chesterley Street or Durham or somewhere like that on the way up, and have a couple of hours there. So we'll have a fair amount. Let's just say that.
You can. The good thing about Newcastle is away fans can just drink in any pub as well. Yeah. And obviously, there's a a thing about how many pubs are within a 1 mile radius of St James's Park, and it's like 113 or something stupid like that. You know, so it's great for away fans, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the difference. I think that's why Newcastle have got such kind of good grace with a lot of people, because there's never any issues there. You can go and you can talk to Newcastle fans about anything, football of all time, all of any type of all times of the year, and there's never an issue there. Whereas here, I mean, there's one away pub for away fans in Wolverhampton, which is it was for their own safety, but it's so the police don't have to do their job properly more than anything else.
Yeah.
And it's a shame, because I mean, I drink in an Irish club that's just down the road from the ground, and we let people in there, no problem whatsoever, and we've never had an issue ever, and you wouldn't, would you? So it's a shame, but that's why I think Newcastle away, even on a Friday night, it's still sold out.
Yeah, absolutely.
For that reason, because it's a great place to go, and it's a good night out. So
yeah, let's have a look at some of the matches between the two teams lately then. So Newcastle haven't beaten Wolves in the Premier League. Does anyone want to guess when the last time was?
I already know.
All right, Stu, what do you think, Stu? When was the last time you lost to Newcastle in the Premier League?
So that's looking. That was 1-1 as well. I was thinking that when we had Terry Connor in charge, but that was a 1 each as well. Viagonair 1-1 in 2004. Oh God, you probably took. Has it even happened?
Yeah, no, it was 2011, so that was the last time. So
and McCarthy,
yeah. So but that's 11 years ago, and I know that the teams have been in different divisions a part of that time, and we have actually played in the Championship, and we beat Wolves away, and Wolves beat Newcastle at Newcastle, and we've won a Carling Cup game as well in 2016, which I completely and utterly forgot about till I was looking at it earlier.
That Carling Cup game was 3 days after the league game.
Oh, was it?
It's the only time I haven't had to. It's the only time I've had to not climb stairs at Newcastle away. So it was there twice in the space of a week.
Yeah. So these are the results. I've got them up on the screen here since we got back to the Premier League. So they've all been 1-1 pretty much. I really can't remember that much about many of these games. They've all been, not much has obviously happened in very many of them. Wolves have won 2-1 in 2018 at St James's, and then you obviously beat us earlier this season, which was a pretty big game for us, because that was the last game before the takeover. So and Jeff Hendrick scored a goal after coming on as a substitute. So that'll go down in history as a very sort of a monumental occasion, because it was the last game of the Mike Ashley era. But when you look at these, when you look at these results, Stu, do you have kind of many memories about these games that have all been 1-1? They all merge into each other for me.
It's terrible. They've all been terrible.
So boring.
And I mean, even the Steve Bruce. How many of them were under Bruce? Was it most of all of them?
There'll have been all of the 2019 and 2021 games.
Yeah. So I mean, that 2-1 win for us in 2018 was Matt Doherty scoring in the third minute of injury time. I remember going quite mental at that and losing my voice for 3 days. But yeah, playing Newcastle has been like a curse. Like, no one wants that game. Let's just get it out of the way, because we know what it's going to be. It's going to be terrible. It was like when we used to play Stoke all the time. And yeah, I couldn't name you a goal scorer in any of them games. I'd guess it'd be Raul, one or two of them, but that'd be it.
I'm glad it's not just me then. Yeah.
No, it's just blurring. They all blur into one for
Selective
obvious
amnesia.
reasons.
There was one game where we were winning at Molineux until the 96th minute or something, and then I think it was Bolly scored a goal.
Yeah.
So I remember that one because I just got to work and I was watching it, and then that happened, and I think there was a foul in there as well. Probably it was pre-VAR.
Yeah, he bundled the keeper out of the line.
Yeah, and then that was allowed. That was the last minute. So I remember that one because I had to go to work and I was absolutely raging. But yeah, it's been very, very boring, hasn't it? Really.
Yeah, it's game. I mean, we had a few 0-0s against Brighton as well, and it's a kind of We can't do Stripes. Stripes is like our nemesis. Oh, we lost twice to Huddersfield Town in the Premier League, for God's sake. So they got relegated that year and all. So us and Stripes don't get on. It's just a thing. It must just be the Albion reference again. I mean, they always beat us as well. No, it's no surprise. It must be. It is like selective colour blindness.
Yeah. So there's really not much to shout home about any of those games. Let's have a look at the current league table. And they've got the form on here as well. Like we were just talking about Wolves' league position earlier. So 8th in the table, 49 points. Win this one, and it's been cut off this, but you go to 52, which is 6th, which will be above West Ham and Man United, I think.
Yeah.
It's.
I mean, more looking at their fixtures, it's more than likely going to be for 1 or 2 days only, really, if it happened. But yeah, I think it's more of a case of just kind of getting as many points as we can now to kind of keep us 8th. Is the pessimistic way of looking at things. I mean, even Leicester there with a few games in hand on us, even if they win that, then we've still got three in favour. So it's, in a way, it's consolidation, more of a let's just see what we can do more than anything else at this point of the season. No one, like I said earlier, no one's going to be disappointed if this is where we finish.
Yeah, and the recent form's been pretty good. 3 wins out of the last 5.
Yeah, we've gone on this ever since the turn. Like I said earlier about the goals being scored. Since the turn of the year, we've kind of clicked into gear. I mean, the last loss there was against Leeds. I don't know if you saw that decision to send Raul Jimenez off for when he was fouled, which it was 2 yellows. So the whole VAR thing again, you can't send them off for VAR or whatever. That can't be reviewed for 2 yellows. But we've had some ridiculous decisions go against us, as a lot of teams other than the big 6, 7 have. But other than that, yeah, we've been playing really well. We've seemed to have got in our stride now, and the players all seem to know their jobs. And I'm actually really looking forward to it, because I think I'm quite intrigued, because for the first time in what seems like forever, I don't know how it's going to go. I don't think it's going to be boring either.
It'll be 1-1. It'll be 1-1. But Mark, look at this league table here. So if you look at the goals scored and goals against, this is really interesting. I've just picked up one. Newcastle and Wolves have scored the same amount of goals this season. We've scored 33 goals.
Wow.
We've conceded 54 to Wolves' 27. So we've conceded exactly double the amount of goals Wolves have conceded. And we've
Which up until we started losing.
What do you make of that, Mark?
Well, it's interesting, because I think going forward we do struggle to score. So it's interesting to see that we've actually scored as many as Wolves, because I would have thought Wolves have been significantly ahead of us. The defense, though, I think it speaks volumes, given that the form in 2022, we up until we started our recent losing streak, we were in like the top range of the most stingiest defenses in the league.
Yeah, we hadn't conceded more than 1 goal for about 10 games.
Exactly, yeah. So it shows you exactly how bad things were under Bruce, in terms of how many goals we were conceding. And it shows that the team was just giving up. We were like, as soon as we went a goal down, there was no way we were coming back into it, because we didn't score enough goals. But it seemed that the team knew that, so they just stopped trying as well. But it certainly has picked up. But yeah, that's actually a crazy stat.
54 goals conceded.
That's insane.
Bad.
And they've had the Leeds on 68.
Look at the Leeds one though, 68.
Yeah. That's.
I mean, we've scored 33 goals, but remember what I said earlier, that 20 of them have been in this calendar year. So
yeah,
we were having trouble scoring at all, let alone just won a game before at the start of the season, and that was with the fire play that we in theory have with Raul Jimenez and Adama Traore at the start of the year as well. So it's
the Korean guy scored twice against Newcastle. I don't think he scored the other week, didn't he? But before that, he hadn't scored for ages. In fact,
yeah, he scored on his debut, then he scored against Newcastle, and then he got one more as well. until recently. Yeah, Hwang.
Yeah.
He's another one of them where he'll run and chase and harry, and he's infinite work rate, which kind of ties into how Bruno Lage wants us to play. So he's been ideal from that point of view. He just needs, as we all seem to have to, score more goals.
Right, let's have a look at the Newcastle home team. So we'll do the Newcastle team selection first, Mark. This is what you think the team might be?
Yeah, I can't see a lot of changes from the Spurs lineup, just purely and simply because I don't think we've got the players. I don't think Howe's got the options off the bench to really change things up. I think it kind of almost picks itself. I think Shelvey's coming back from injury at the moment, or he's not quite 100%. Bruno was on the bench against Spurs, and I think that was more just because he had a late flight back from Brazil or South America, whenever he was playing. But I assume he'll probably start. I think he did enough when he came on to sort of shine as our clearly best player on the day. It wasn't overly hard. Getting flashbacks now. But yeah, Bruno comes in for me. The rest of them kind of pick themselves. Hopefully he can be the spark and actually sort of slot some balls through for Wood for his goal tally to start on the increase, because he's starting to come in for a bit of stick as well now.
Yeah, I think Bruno has been eased into the team. He's come from French league, and he didn't get into the team to begin with because the three midfielders were doing so well. But when you look at him, he's just so good. He's got so much quality. He's starting for Brazil. He's got to start for Newcastle. And I think he will from now on. And he's only played 15 minutes at St. James's Park so far as well, which have been those little cameos. So I think it's time that we see Bruno. I've got a feeling, though, that if Shelvey's all right, I think he might play Shelvey again. And I think it might be Willock that drops out.
Yeah, potentially.
And Bruno might push a little bit further forward in that scenario. And also, Joe Linton didn't have a very good game against Spurs. So there could be some injury problems there. He stopped being Patrick Vieira, which he's turned into since Eddie Howe came in. We're going to look at Stu's team in a minute, but do you think there's any possibility, Mark, that we might actually switch things up here and match Wolves' potential three at the back?
I did think that, yes.
Yeah, there was talk against Spurs that he could potentially have done that, which might have stopped us from leaking all those goals.
Yeah, if we swap over to Stu's and see the three at the back formation, my feeling is that sort of a lineup really does lend itself to dominating the midfield, and that's exactly the kind of lineup that Spurs had against us as well. I think. Yeah, I think if we go into it with a flat back four, it's leaving the midfield short. It's not giving us that overlap potential on the wings. We don't really have that extra option on the wings, so it'll be interesting to see how we go. That had actually gone through my mind. Yes.
Yeah, I just think because of what happened against Spurs with all those goals conceded, that could be something we see. Yeah, which would see one of those midfielders come out probably for Lascelles, who would obviously be the captain.
Yeah.
I look at Stu's lineup there and Wolves' defence, and I just think, how's Chris Wood going to get any kick whatsoever? Stu, talk us through this lineup.
I mean, two of that back three have been playing together in a back three since 2017, so it's by numbers at this point with them too. I mean, Cody and Bolly. Johnny, again, right wing back, who he played the vast majority of his Wolves career at left wing back, even though he's right footed. He's just come back from 2 ACL injuries on the same knee, and he's now scored two goals in 2 games for the first time in his Wolves career, which is bloke's a machine, unbelievable. I mean, Marçal, Brazilian left back. I mean, he's probably on his way out. He only came really as cover for Johnny because of his injury issues anyway. He might change it up with Ryan Nuri, a young French kid who's looked superb at times, but without Neves in the middle to cover, because that's what's happened with how we play. When the wing backs push on, one of the midfielders drops back into their position. So you've always got someone, but it's always a fluid formation rather than just looking as static as that actually looks there. Then Donker doesn't do that as much. Moutinho doesn't do that as much with his age, especially. So Marcel's more of a defensive wing back rather than an attacking one, which Aït-Nouri is. That's it's either or for them too. But the other three, the three at the back, we've played three at the back for, like I said, in 2017. That's not going to change. And the only thing I'll have is that Cody does get bullied when you've got a big centre forward there.
All right.
And Chris Wood has dominated him in the past. Burnley beat us 4-0 at Molineux in lockdown. So, and he was amazing that day. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility that happened again. But that was before we got Max Kilman playing out of his skin.
It's so funny, honestly. We've spoken to West Ham fans on here. We've spoken to Leeds fans, and there was it was Villa as well. He used to play for Leeds, Chris Wood. But the West Ham and the Villa fans were absolutely terrified of Chris Wood.
Yeah.
We're like, what's going on here? Because he's big and he holds the ball up, but he doesn't really score goals for us, and he's not very mobile. So it's interesting that we found another fan of another club who thinks Chris Wood's amazing. I'm astonished.
I mean, he nearly signed for us before he signed for Burnley as well, years and years ago. So it's kind of that thing of, we keep an eye on him, just like what we missed out on, kind of thing. But yeah, he's been a proper menace. Like there's like certain players that you think they've got no reason to be as good as they are against us every single year without fail, and he's one of them. So you might have got his paid the money for him just for this game. I do like the Spain of Wanderers as well, with an O and not an A. I'll leave you on that.
I didn't notice that. Oh dear.
But yeah, I think
we'll have a word.
We'll have a word with our marketing department.
Oh no, it was Craig, wasn't it? Oh god, yeah,
that's Craig.
I think
that might be intentional.
We have been wonderful this season, so I'll let you off with that one. The midfield too, like I said earlier, we've literally got no choice other than if we play young Luke Cundle, which he played. He made his debut at Spurs away, which we won, and he was superb. And again, just a kid who's a young local kid, come through the system, and he's had a couple of sub appearances, 2 or 3 minutes here and there, but that's it. So he might come in if we went to a 3 in midfield, which I don't think they're well going as how well we played against Villa at the weekend. So, and then the front three, Raul Jimenez is suspended and hasn't been great this season anyway, and obviously we kind of know why. It's affected him more of his overall game has changed. The way he plays has changed. His demeanor is different, but the fact that he's even alive and fine.
I was going to say he could have died, couldn't he? Really? So yeah.
I mean, you should. Have you seen the documentary?
I've not seen it, but I've heard about it. Yeah.
It's on the Wolves YouTube now as well. Red Notice. It's 40 minutes long. It's really, as club documentaries go, it's really, really well done. And then Daniel Podence went off injured, so you might see Hwang Hee-chan in place of him if he doesn't recover in time. And Trincão's kind of suddenly out and out. He's one of them players where he's so annoying and frustrating because he's got all the talent in the world, but he's like built out of sugar paper where you can just snap him and he'll fall down. But since there was a very public kind of roasting of one of our players, Keanu Hoover, a few weeks ago. And since that day, Bruno Lage had a go at him and the younger players in the squad. Trincão was one of them. It seems Fabio Silva was one of them as well. And since that day, Hoover's been injured. I mean, that's why he had a go at him. He called him out for getting himself injured, for not warming up properly. Which seemed, as a young kid, you think, can you really do that in the press? Come and just slight someone for being unprofessional? But it's completely worked. Everyone he called out said, you need to sort yourselves out or you won't be here. He's got it injured now. He's now going to be third choice right back. He's probably not going to have a career at the club now, long term. And Trincão's kind of flourished in the 2 games that he's played. So I think Trincão and Silva are kind of nailed on. The only starters that might change there is Marcel for Aït-Nouri and Podence for Hwang, but the rest I'd say are nailed on.
And Silva's kind of picked up his form lately, has he? 35 million?
Yeah. Yeah, it was 35 million, but we obviously paid way over the odds. We were paying for potential, and if we'd have waited any longer, we couldn't have got him because of Brexit rules. That's true, because of work permits and stuff like that. Since that all changed because we couldn't, because he was a kid. So like the Fabregas thing at Arsenal years ago, we wouldn't have been able to get him because he hadn't played. He wouldn't have had enough points for a work permit for playing for Portugal because he wouldn't have done. And if he'd have progressed at the rate that he was, then we wouldn't have got him anyway, like João Felix. So it was a gamble. If it pays off in the long term, who knows? But it was just one of them things. We haven't took many gambles in the last 5 years, but that was one of them. And he still didn't score against Villa, but he got a standing ovation when he came off.
And it might still pay off, the gamble, you know. So you can't write it off yet.
It's another one. He's a young kid, not his native language, even though half of Wolverhampton speaks Portuguese now. On the we had a Portuguese calf open. It was that ridiculous. So he was. You got to look at it in perspective that he was a young kid, different country, different language. Yeah, he's got his workmates and a few peers around him, but no real family support, especially under lockdown at the time. He was skinny. He was not built. It was like Captain America, where before and after he goes in the machine. That's what it's been like with him. He turned up as this scrawny little waif, and now he's put a bit of muscle on. He's got a sleeve tattoo. He's bulked up, and now he bundled Tyrone Mings off the ball, which he's not an insignificant sized guy. So, and he rightly got a standing ovation for his work rate as well, which has improved immensely. I think all that's missing now is the goals, and hopefully they'll come soon.
I remember when Cristiano Ronaldo arrived, and he was very similar, wasn't he? He was absolutely nothing, and then it was after the Euros in 2004, I think he came back, and it was like, oh my word, this is a different player. He's a monster now. So
we had the same thing with Pedro Neto as well. His first season here, and he was another one. Him and Bruno Jordão, who's played 2 or 3 games in the Premier League. They came for a combined, I think it was 18, 19 million quid from Italy. And you think, is this a George Mendes little deal on the side for his friends again? And Neto, who seemed to be the cheaper of the two, depending on where you read, he was nothing. There was nothing to him. He was getting bundled off the ball. He had a pre-season, came back. He was our player of the year last year, and then he got done, and he's been out for 9 months, and he's just starting to come back now. But again, that's the thing. I mean, like you were saying with Bruno there, he's playing in France. It's a different league. He's going to take time to bulk up, and I think next season you'll see the best of him.
Yeah. All right, let's have some predictions. We're not allowed to say 1-1, right? That's the rule. We're not allowed to say 1-1. Let's have some predictions. Mark, you can go first.
It's going to be a tough game. I would have said 1-1. I'm gonna go a hopeful response from the Spurs game. Hopefully everyone's fired up. Bruno masterclass and Chris Wood to score 2 goals. So 2-1 to Newcastle.
2-1. All
hopeful.
Right. Stu, you can go.
I mean, straight after the Spurs game, I put it in our group chat. I said, well, Freudy's got 0-0 written all over it now. They're going to go back to basics. They're going to be drilled at this defensive masterclass again. But we've got a bit of history with Eddie Howe. We don't like him very much because of Bournemouth, and there was a bit of shenanigans there over the years.
Oh, really? All right, okay.
Yeah, it was like, I couldn't wait for Bournemouth to be relegated the way they played. I mean, it was proper shithousing at the best of times. Just bad, like really bad gamesmanship for the rest. And I said it was no surprise where they got relegated the first year VAR came in. Like all this off the ball stuff's now been, they can't do it anymore, and then they went down. But he seems like he's gone away and kind of reassessed himself, because when I've seen Newcastle about 4 or 5 times since he took over, and none of that seems to happen. Yeah. So if he's gone away and he's come back and he's concentrating on the football, I think this could be 2-2. I think it's going to be a really good game.
All right.
Chris Wood will score because he always does. It's just a fact.
That's what the West Ham and the Villa fans said, and that didn't happen. So yeah, he scored one goal in I think 12 or 13 games. But in fairness, he's not been playing too badly most of the time. Some games he hasn't been very good. But I think it's all right. So 2-2. I think this is going to be very low scoring. But I said this before the Spurs game, and then there was 6 goals. But I've just got a feeling that we might go back to basics a little bit. I think we might try and keep it tight. I think we might go 3 at the back and try and kind of grind it out like we did against. We ground out the win against Villa at home. So I think it might be 1-0. I'm going to be optimistic. I think it'll be 1-0, and I think for us that we need the points more than Wolves need the points at the moment. We need another kind of 5 or 6 points, I think, to make sure we're safe. So I'm going to go 1-0. I think that'll be the score, and it'll be 7 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, and we'll be happy, and it'll set us up for the weekend. That's what's gonna.
I'll just remind me to take my pillow to have a little nap on the way home.
Yeah. All right then, Stu. That's been a pleasure. Thanks very much for coming on.
No problem. Anytime.
Yeah, really
Cheers,
good.
Stu.
Thanks very much, Mark.
No, it's been good fun.
Yeah,
always nice to get the insights for another fan base.
Yeah, it is, and like I said, you just really learn things that you don't know about if you don't talk to fans. So yeah, that's really, really interesting. We will be back on. I think we're going to do a live kind of instant reaction after the game on Saturday morning, win, lose or draw. So we'll be back for that. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at TwoandUnderPod. We're on the website twoandUnder.com. And we're also on Facebook. That'll do. Thanks very much, Stu.
Cheers, lads.
Cheers, Mark. And
cheers, mate.
We'll see you soon.
Have
See
a
ya.
good one.